you go. This session is proudly sponsored by the San Jose State University School of Information. There's an inscription over the door at the Library of Thebes that reads, and I quote, "Medicine for the soul." Now, imagine the effects of closing libraries due to the pandemic. My name is Yusuf Ganyana. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya. I'm a husband, a father, we shall revisit this, and a champion for digital literacy and inclusion, working with underserved communities. I am in the ICT space. I know this begs the question, why am I here? Well, my DNA is more of a librarian with a bias in technology than the former, and with more than 4 years of experience. As we all know, the pandemic highlighted the drastic digital divide and varying levels of internet penetration. So as a father to a 6-year-old, the hurdles that I experienced facilitating her online to continue the higher educational journey were massive. It triggered a thought of how underserved children and their parents were coping with the new normal, most of whom are wholly dependent on their community library resources, that is, if any exists. So what is digital inclusion? And for me, I sort of thought of how things would have been different if those sort of access to ICT devices or internet or a resource center, but that was not the case. But then again, all the same, I just tried to figure out the benefits that the children could have had then. So some of the benefits that came to mind were, one, it is convenient, especially when if we have technologies that we can take home and use whenever times allows us. Two, digital inclusion allows for easy access to information, especially open educational resources. Three, children read for pleasure because of the piqued curiosity elicited by technologies. Four, digital inclusion will enable us achieve the minimum reading and numeracy proficiency levels. Four, it's going to level the playing field. Five, it's going to boost children's academic performance. And last but not least, education is going to be less expensive thanks to open educational resources, because most of them are free. And so it wouldn't be as expensive as buying maybe textbooks or storybooks and the likes. As you can tell, or rather say, the benefits that we've just mentioned are a powerful motivator for someone to take an initiative, or rather take an action to do something about it. So here enters LAIBU MKONONI. When the pandemic struck, we as LAIBU MKONONI came up with a brilliant idea. why not ask the general public to donate all old or unused devices lying around, on which we would refurbish if need be, and then load them with quality offline open educational resources, such as curriculum-based materials, storybooks, educational games, and educational videos. Then, with the help of the community partners and volunteers, we will lend these devices loaded with the aforementioned content to children in the informal settlements for free for up to a month. That's where actually we came up with the slogan of library in the palm of your hand. Because once you give out the device, it comes loaded with storybooks, educational materials, games, videos, curriculum-based materials also. So it's one device, but carrying so many, or rather, a lot of educational resources. Also, the devices we sort of for security purposes or for the safety of the kids or other children, the devices also come included with the parental control software, basically to manage time that they're using the device, and also to limit access to applications that they can utilize, therefore creating a safe learning environment. So I know most of you are asking why open educational resources. So according to Creative Commons, there are at least 1.6 billion licensed resources out there. That is massive, meaning we can share at least 1.6 billion quality free educational resources without having to ask for permission. And the best part about it is that you can adapt the said materials to better suit your local context and needs. We started this initiative in Kibera. As you can see the picture, this is just a portion of the Kibera settlement scheme. Kibera is one of the biggest impoverished settlements in Kenya's capital city. And my interest in this community was born out of realizing that schools in the settlement are informal and under-resourced. As a result, ICT infrastructure is an automatic luxury. As you all know, when the COVID-19 outbreak happened, it sort of had a domino effect on all our lives. For example, schools and libraries were closed across Kenya, meaning children from low-income families, such as those from Kibera, were at a disadvantage because they could not afford to enroll for online classes. When we started off, we had so little devices that we could utilize. And so sort of we innovated more, or we just came up with a solution in that we used to print the same educational materials that we used to input the devices. We also used to print them. These are storybooks or revision materials, and then distribute them in the settlement. In that now, at least for those who don't have, or rather miss out, or they are waiting for their turn to use the devices, they still have something that will keep them busy or engaged. So once, for example, for the curriculum-based materials, or rather revision materials, what happened is that we also enlisted the assistance of volunteer teachers who would aid us to mark. So what happened is the children we would give them the revision materials, then they'll bring them back at a certain date. We used to meet twice a week. So once they bring them back, teachers would pick them, mark them, then guide the students where they went wrong, and then we would either issue new devices, or rather give them the devices, or just continue giving them new resources to utilize. So what are we doing now that the pandemic is the new normal? Schools are opened. So we are doing two fronts. Number one, we are approaching schools that sort of have I wouldn't say a computer lab or an ICT lab, but they sort of have a computer or two. And so what you're doing is we are loading them with an app called Colibri. And what Colibri is basically, it's an adaptable set of open solutions, specially developed to support learning for the half of the world without the internet. It's centered around an offline fast learning platform that runs on a variety of low cost and legacy devices. So the keyword is low cost and legacy, because for those schools that have they might have computers or a computer lab, the devices are sort of legacy, they're very old. And so, but for Colibri, it will work perfectly in them. The other thing that we are doing is outreach. And by outreach, we also approaching schools in that we request the administration to sort of slot us in maybe a lesson. And during that lesson, we do read aloud or long sessions. We also issue devices that the students can either read storybooks that are loaded into them. Actually, we have this app called Google Read Along. It's basically, you download stories that you can utilize offline. And once you open a story, sort of the app picks whatever, or rather the pronunciations that you issue, or rather you when reading, it records you. And if, for example, if you misspell a word, the app is able to correct you. So these, mostly I use that app to sort of make them read, and plus the interest they have, as in, it's really amazing how they read, and the app is able to correct them and requesting them to repeat that a word or something. So sort of it creates that reading, or rather it inculcates reading culture in the long run. So we also give them devices to play games. These are educational games, also educational videos. For these mostly for the younger children. For the bigger ones, we are training them on basic computer skills. In that now that it's just a matter of time before everything goes digital. I wouldn't wish for them to be caught off guard. So what I'm doing is I'm training them on how basically to navigate the digital world. So I'll just show you some pictorials of what we've been doing when the schools were open. So the first pictorial is of small children. Basically, like now they're watching an educational video. The second pictorial, they're the same kids, but now we are training them on basic computer skills. The third one is them using the devices that we have. So once after the sessions, basically what happens is just we give them devices for them to utilize them in whatever way they would wish. So some would read stories, some would do coloring. We have coloring apps, we have typing apps, and so on and so forth. Then the fourth pictorial is, there's a time we went for an outreach in a deaf school. It was really a humbling experience. On the farthest left corner, you can see there are kids who are standing. There's a projection. We were using a projector actually to project a story. And so what the kids that are standing, what they were doing, they were listening, or rather they were just, because they couldn't really hear what was going on, but they had an idea. These are the big kids in the school. And so what they were doing was they were interpreting to the younger ones. It was a really humbling experience. Then the fifth pictorial is the same, there's a volunteer called Eric Kamande, taking kids through basic computer skills. Last but not least, we have Pictorial 6, where kids, actually we went to the streets. These are street kids. And so we are trying to sort of engage them. I would say it was successful, but mostly not successful. But at the end of the day, I would say we at least 5 of them are now coming to the library, to a local library that is near them. And so, yeah, that's why I'm saying it's a success, but it wasn't a success because there are so many hurdles. Some were very rowdy, but then again, this is something that we had expected. The other thing that you're doing is what I'm calling a tiny seed. Tiny seed to mean like for every 5 devices that they are donated to us, we will also donate the same to either a community library or a resource center. And so these just for them to start off. And from there now, they can, at least they have something that they can start with and grow. So that's why I'm calling it a tiny seed. But we are not there yet there. Hopefully, we'll achieve this across the country. But we are very optimistic and hopeful that all will be well. And so in that regard, if you have any help or ideas that you can make this a success, at the end of the session, I'm going to share my contact information. You can always reach out. So far we have donated 42 devices to 4 community libraries with over 200 beneficiaries. We have done over 300 printouts of revision materials and short stories. We were approached by an organization that is called TutorWeb, or the mother initiative is called Education in a Suitcase. And so what happens is through their TutorWeb app, they coach you how to do mathematical drills. Then you're supposed to do drills for a certain level. And once you accumulate, for every correct computation you do, you get rewarded with what you call smiley coins. Basically, they are using digital currency. So once you accumulate 1 million digital currencies, you're given a tablet. And so 5 of our students, or rather beneficiaries of LAIBU MKONONI, were able to get tablets. So from borrowing, now they are all proud owners of 5 tablets. But what was really amazing is that once the rest got to know about this, I guess the parents sort of gave them their smartphones. And so as we speak now, we have like through the TutorWeb app, 188 students were gifted with tablets. So it was a really amazing, an amazing initiative, but it's still going on. So more are going to benefit. The other benefit impact is that Hussein Arero, on the one on the rightmost side, is a beneficiary of LAIBU MKONONI and TutorWeb, and he was also a top performer in the 2020 Kenya Certificate of Primary Education exams in his school. At this juncture, I put the floor open for us to engage. So if you have any questions, concerns, clarifications, I'll be happy to address them. Thank you. Maybe if you have a question, you can just raise the virtual hand. I'll be able to pick you out. Thank you. Sue is asking, you've done so much for the users served. What are the greatest needs? So far, I would say is access to educational resources. And that's actually what drove us to start this initiative. Um, the other issue is safe spaces. Now that the libraries, when COVID happened, now that the library was closed, um, and keeping in mind the environment, the settlement environment, it wasn't conducive for education, or rather for learning or for revision. So that's I would say that's those are two things that really the greatest need that I saw from the beneficiaries. Yes, so I actually exclusively use open educational resources because yes, I would wish to have paid for resources, but then again, one, we don't have the financial muscle to do that. And number two is that yes, we sort of get some funds once in a while, but then again, we have so much overheads that for now, open educational resources suffice. So yeah, that's why I'm more, or rather, I have a passion for doing that. Just using or AR, open educational resources. Well, if you don't have any further questions, then just proceed. I'll share my contacts. So we are in Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. You can always get in touch. You can always also shoot us an email, or rather shoot me an email at yganyana@gmail.com. And I'll be happy to address any issues or questions or concerns that you might have. I'll finish with a quote from Martin Luther King Jr., who once said, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" Thank you. Asante. Be blessed and all the best.